Hello, Stoke, and everybody here. What a pleasure to be amongst you all today. And yeah, I'd say thanks to Darren too, because I met Darren the other evening. I've met him a couple of times on the big screen, which we all work from now, because we're all movie stars, aren't we, since the COVID and on Zoom. So so it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you very much for for what you're going to hear and for what you're about to receive. Made me be truly grateful. So I guess what I want to think about is what my journey is to where I am here today, which if I'd have told my younger self this is where I'd be, I genuinely wouldn't have believed it. I would have, from being an invisible to being fairly visible is quite a journey. So I want to think about, and Kieran really set me up really nicely for what I'm going to talk about as well. And I want to imagine, as a child, you carry a rucksack with you wherever you go. And we're all familiar with the rucksack, aren't we? Everybody has to carry one. You know, it's a school rucksack. You might have your lunchbox in it, or you might have your PE kit. But some people have a lot more in that. Some people have the experiences of their life in that rucksack. These were my experiences. As a child, I went to school with my mother's personality disorder weighing heavily in my rucksack, of being shut out in the garden, of not being entitled to the same things as my brother, as being, what I would only say, being given a bad reputation by my own family with everybody else. It was really hard because I thought I was somebody else, but I found out eventually I was. At about age 7, I was given one of the highest scores in maths and English and told that I was a really bright kid. By the time I'd got to secondary school, I was in the top in the maths and English. But what people didn't realise was, in my home, my parents, who were both teachers, were not the parents that people thought they were. And as my grades slipped, and my engagement in what I loved, which was education, began to hit me more, things got harder at home. Instead of connection, there was violence and silence. Instead of love, there was being shut out. So I found love in lots of other ways. I found love in drinking alcohol. God, that was great. I forgot that wasn't love then. And then I did things to get love. I think we all do that. So at the age of 16, the day I left school, thank goodness, was the day I left home. Now, when I say I left school, I'd actually left school, probably I checked out from school easily 2 years before that, because in the 80s, people weren't quite the same about being in school. There weren't registers, there wasn't an electronic way of checking that you were there, and actually nobody really cared. And we were being taught about world wars. And I'm quite a kind of person that doesn't like injustice. And we were also being taught about German. And as a 15-year-old, I just thought, this doesn't add up. I don't understand. So what I decided to do was not go to any classes at the beginning of the year. And by the end of the year, I didn't even know I existed. So I spent an awful lot of my time on my own, and I think by the grace of God that there weren't people that I got. And then when I think about it, I think, but there were people that were doing this. There were people that were saying, that's okay, come round my house when you're not at school. So at 16, was not quite 16, I left home the next day. Leaving home at that age, you really think that you know everything and you're going to be okay. And soon I found 2 lovely men who decided that they would have a competition about how many times they could fuck me. I was 16. And what they paid with was whiskey. I can't stand the bloody stuff now. And fruit and nut chocolate. I'm afraid I still quite like that. But I didn't know until 15 years ago that that's what that was. I was being exploited. But I thought they loved me. I genuinely thought, how lucky am I to have these 2 grown-up men who would take me out in their car and basically, I thought that was what love was. I left that place that I was living at, and from that age to 22, 23, I lived in 15 counties and had 27 places to stay. Those included some really horrendous places, squats and once or twice a refuge. People's sofa. I love the terminology, sofa surfing. It ain't like a holiday in Cornwall, is it, where you go surfing? You know, for me, language is a big issue. We use language quite poorly to describe things, to kind of dumb down the impact. You know, whenever I hear someone say they're sofa surfing, don't make it sound like it's a lovely idea. Living out of a bin bag, there's no fun there. Being in relationships because you can get somewhere to live, there's no fun there. So for all those journeys, I eventually met a man. I've got to admit, I was under the influence at the time and thought he was someone else. And I met this guy and I thought, he said, I've got a spare room in my house. There is a spareroom.com, isn't there? And I said, can I live in it? And he said, yes. I never went in his spare room. I went into his bedroom. I realised, though, to keep safety for myself, the thing I needed was a roof over my head. And now I know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I know that that was something that I was never going to grow as a person until I had those things, and I never had them. So I married this man. Well, actually, it was a forced marriage. I forced him to marry me because I so needed to feel secure and safe with that background of a mother that was really struggling with her mental health and a father who was a victim of domestic abuse and a brother who was the golden boy. Now, whenever my brother comes down, the lights go on in the town, you know, it's all great because he's the achiever and I'm the unachiever and the one that's shamed the family. I'm not anymore, though, let's say that. So, where am I? I married him. It turned out he was actually quite rich, which is a bit of luck because I didn't design it for that reason. And then I thought, how else do I stay this roof over my head? Because this wasn't love. I've got to say this was not love. And he was somebody that was neurodivergent, which I now know I am. And he had no ability to show his feelings. So I couldn't tell if he liked something or hated it. So it was a very difficult and confusing place to live. But soon I got pregnant in the middle of a football match. I wasn't playing it, I was watching it. And there's just enough time. And I conceived my daughter, Kate, who's now 30, and what a joyous child. And then I realised I wasn't in love. And that was a really tough thing. I lost weight, and somebody noticed me. And I thought, hang on a minute, is this where I want to be for the rest of my life? I don't know what happened there. Rosemary Connolly diet, you did it. You inch on the hips and mind, you know, all of that. So I decided to leave. And from somebody who'd been homeless for 25, never feeling at home for all those years, it was a massive step to take. But the reason for doing this was because I wanted something better for my child than I'd had. She is my motivation. So I moved out and I moved into a little 2-bedroom place and I felt really low. I remember being at my darkest moment. She was up with her dad. I was on my own and I thought, I've got nothing. I've got nothing to offer. This is the end. That was a really dark time, but I opened the newspaper, and in the newspaper, there was an advert for women returners. I don't know if anyone ever remembers that. I didn't know I was a women leaver, but I was a women returner. Back to education, back to work. I didn't get any GCSEs, as you can imagine. Some of my exams, I just sat for the whole time, just wrote nothing. And I now know that's because I was traumatised. I thought I was being rebellious. I was like, no, I'm not writing anything. I couldn't remember anything, let alone write things. I did get English, though, just to appease them, because they're English teachers. Anyway, so I see this advert, And I thought, I'm going to go. I'm going to have a look what this college has to offer. And then I arrived in a place where I met this incredible woman called Jean Lanny, who said, come on, love, you can do this. Come on, kid. So I went on this course, which was all about looking forward. And I did get qualified, and I got GCSEs. And I met my amazing friend Rach over there at college. And I found out that I wasn't actually stupid, which is a real relief to me, because I did remember that I was quite bright, but then I thought it must have worn off by then. And then, like, going back to the thing, and I was like, I'm not bad at all. But what I did discover was a love of sociology and people. Of course, you didn't learn that at school, did you? You learned trigonometry and what makes things go fast or slow, and, you know, what's a verb and all that stuff. But I wanted to know about people. How do you know about people in society? That really inspired me. And the good thing was that going to college gave me a new community of people who believed in the fact that you can have a second chance. You can have a third, a fourth, a fifth, however many chances you need, because you're worth it. That's where I started to discover. And thanks, Kieran, because a lot of what you've talked about is really chimed with me, is about your own seam of gold. Like, what is the thing in you? And sometimes, folks, our seam of gold is buried under layers of shit that most people have put on top of it. So we've got a lot of mining to do, you know? We've got a lot of mining to do. And we need a person like my friend Jean, who believed in me and said, come on, kid, you can do it. I know you can do it. I don't know how she knew, though. That's what I've always wondered. Anyway, so years go on, and I go and work in a residential school with young people, and I loved it, and I taught them how to do maths using cigarettes and beer and as algebra, and let's get real, let's stop trying to make them do sines and cosines and get them to realise what they're already mathematicians. They just didn't know it. And then I worked for a charity. It really dumped into a moment where somebody gives you a box of stuff and goes, yeah, there's your job. And if that's ever happened to anyone, it probably happened to all of us at some point. You then make your own job. And I ran a women's support group charity for 3 years and got made redundant. I think it's a great potential for something to happen. And then Jean pops up again, Jean the genie, and gives me a job. I've never really ever had an interview. And I go and take all the work I've been doing to her. And then I get made redundant again. So this is 2014. And in 2014, I'd had a little bit of a side hustle, which, you know, some of us may know about. And I had another bank account where I'd been doing a bit of work for a woman who wanted to make a difference in the community. And together, we created a programme called Young Mums Matter. So that was 2012, 2014. And we got some funding because I had now to save the money in a different account. When I got made redundant, I was able to start a charity because I had the money, the backing. So we established Yellow Brick Road Projects in 2014. So our vision is that all young people have a stable foundation for their future. We started with our flagship programme, which is now called You Matter. And one of our young women that passed the programme or completed the programme said, You Matter makes you matter. And we work with young people aged 11 to 35 who don't feel they matter, who don't feel that anyone has noticed. They feel isolated. They feel part of a community that pulls them in but doesn't give them the value that they actually have. When you're carrying that rucksack of heavy things, it's really hard to function. You know, imagine that child in the playground carrying a rucksack. How easy is it to, when you've got all of those things that are going on at home, how easy is it to climb the climbing frame? How easy is it to run around? Soon you get laughed at, and then you behave in a way which draws attention to yourself. And instead of somebody asking, what's happened to you, they say, out. Get out. Go and sit in isolation. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Right, you're out. And, you know, Kieran's story moved me a great deal. If anybody had asked, what's happened to you, And that's what we do at Yellow Brick Road Projects. So we have an amazing team. I can't believe I work with 18 people. I mean, honestly, I could never keep a job before, let alone work with 18 people. What I've learned this year, as probably quite a lot of us, is whether it's a trauma-related thing or whatever it is, I have ADHD. And yesterday, before this, I just went into meltdown because I thought, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do it that way. But now I know I'm doing it my way. So in the first few years of setting up an organisation, and anybody that's done it will know, you have to be everything. And the way you have to be everything, the way I did it, was I had different accents. And if somebody wanted to talk to the accounts department, for whatever reason, I thought they were Scottish, the people in the accounts department. So I'd pass myself to myself and answer the question about the thing that I knew the answer for. I've stopped doing it now, by the way, just so you know, and I'm not going to do the accent because it's not that good. But, you know, I had this kind of illusion that behind every organisation were this series of people that were all doing. What I realised very quickly was, oh, no, CEO means Chief Everything Officer, and whatever that is, you do it. But now, CEO for me means a conductor of an extraordinary orchestra. A team... a team of people who I am so privileged to work with, and by caring for those people who care, they can care for the people we care for. And that for me is the essence of Yellow Brick Road Projects. We ask everybody, our team, to tell us about their seam of gold. And I'd like you to think about what yours is today before we finish. No shouting out though, because it will get very loud very quickly, but because that's what we help our young people to find. By believing them, by walking alongside them in their journey, by not judging them, by always being there, by showing up. Even when stuff has been really tough, when we are facing our own challenges ourselves, our team show up for young people. Since we established in 2014, I've got to say 10 years now, we've worked with over 5,000 young people. And I can't quite believe that, but I've done the adding up. And I'm really good at numbers now. I wasn't before. We've worked with over 5,000 young people, and we have 3 main projects. So we do our You Matter programme, which is a 12-week accredited life skills programme, which runs in locations across Hampshire, including the Isle of Wight, and I'm really proud to say that. We work in the homeless hostels for young people so that they've got the skills that they really, truly need and deserve to go out and maintain the life that they deserve. In 2019, those years which perhaps we all would rather forget, we launched a second programme. And that was as a result of meeting an incredible young man, probably a bit like Kieran, who told his story, and we said, we need to do something. Too many kids are being excluded. Too many kids are at risk of exploitation. So the Legacy Project was created in that year and still runs today. And we mentor young people in schools, and often they're not in school, and help them to find their seam of gold. I just want a quick wave to Abby. Abby is my colleague. She is the second part of me. And if anybody works in this world, you'll know how important that is, to have somebody when you go, I think this is a good idea. And they go, okay, how are we going to do that then? So I'm aware of the time, and I can't believe I've spoken for quite as long as this, not looked at my notes once. I want a big thanks to to Expert Citizens and also to Sound Delivery Media. I was one of the privileged people to take part in a spokesperson training programme a couple of years ago. And we did amazing stuff, but one of the things we were able to do is kind of be creative and express ourselves. So I'm going to read you what I wrote during one of the evenings. I'm not a poet, but it's words. What do you see? What do you see when you see me? Eyes are blue, wonky knee. Short and fat, small and round, beaming smile, no filter to be found. What do you hear? What do you see when you hear me? Laughter, passion, emotions, ideas, tumbling words that rush from my lips. Years of trauma has settled on my hips. What don't you know when you see me? Years where I felt judged, hated, denied instead of beloved. Homelessness, abuse, emotional neglect. Exploited alone, nowhere to rest. What don't you know when you see me? The choices I made to run from the pain, to be the real me, freed from the shame. So what I hope for people like me is that people they meet see more than they see. Thank you very much for your time.